Good afternoon. Welcome to the Grande Prairie City Council meeting for Monday, February 24th, 2020. I'd ask everyone in attendance to rise and join us in singing O Canada.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you to the National Film Board of Canada for the images of our country and to an alumni of our very own Grande Prairie Boys Choir for the audio. We'll move on to the adoption of previous council meeting minutes. Can I get an motion for that set of minutes? Councillor Bressey.
Thank you, Mayor Given. And man, we're not good at singing O Canada without Councillor Thiessen here. I'd move the council adopt the minutes of the City Council meeting held Monday, February 10th, 2020 as presented.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Bressey. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Seeing nobody ringing in, then I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. And can I get a motion for the adoption of the agenda? Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that Council adopt the agenda with one amendment, and that is to move item 12 to occur after item 17.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Blackburn. Recognizing that we're not having a recess this afternoon, we'll move through all the public portion of the agenda before closing with the in-camera. Thanks, Councillor Blackburn. Any discussion or debate on the agenda as amended? Again, seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. And that motion carries. That brings us to the open delegation portion of our agenda. At every regular City Council meeting in our afternoon session, we have an opportunity for any member of the public to come forward and address Council on any community-related matter. You don't need to call ahead to let us know that you're coming. We always appreciate that. But this is just one of two opportunities that the public have to come and present to Council. As I mentioned, we don't have any scheduled delegations, and it doesn't look like we have anybody coming forward for public delegations. So I just would leave that little reminder that there are many different ways to get in touch with Council, and this is just one of them. That being the case, that we'll move on to unfinished business and item 6.1 bylaw C1412, the election bylaw. We're here for a third and final reading, and I would look for a council member to make a motion to that effect. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I'd move that council give third reading to bylaw C-1412, being the election bylaw.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Any discussion or debate? The first two readings of the bylaw did occur at our last council meeting. The third and final reading was carried over to this council meeting to give an opportunity for any additional public discourse or opportunity to review it. And I appreciate that we've had that opportunity. I see Councillor Bressey in the queue.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Given. I'll definitely be voting in favor of this, but just heads up to Council, it's something I wonder if we should be talking about. Is I spent a lot of time the last 2 weeks looking at financial disclosures and what the MGA allows us to put into this election bylaw in terms of candidates' disclosures. And there's a few things that I wish we could do that the MGA doesn't allow us to do, so I'm not proposing any amendments to this, but there might be some policies we want to talk about over the next 2 years in terms of making financial disclosures available to the public that we receive anyways. I think that might be a good step of transparency that would help the public hold us and future people in these seats to account. Not directly related to the election bylaw, but something I think we should be thinking about as we're thinking about elections.
Thanks, Councillor Bressey. The other thing, too, for Council and actually for any members of the public that might have an interest, the province is currently conducting a public consultation on municipal elections, local elections for public, for school boards and for municipalities. Council members, if you haven't already filled in the survey, I think it's open until March 4th. would encourage you to have a look at that. The province is currently reviewing the Local Authorities Election Act, and there's some discussion about campaign contribution limits, whether they should be increased, disclosure requirements for third-party advertisers, and requirements for when people seeking office can start to collect money for expenses. And so obviously relevant to all of us who've gone through that, but also to any other member of the public who has an interest in local democracy, and anybody who may wish to be a candidate in the future should be having a look at that and providing some opinion. So I don't see anybody else ringing in, so I'll call for the vote on third and final reading. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries, and would take us into our reports. We'll look at item 7.1, the AUMA resolution, and I'll look to our Director of Corporate Services, Mr. Bork, to introduce this one for us.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Following up on the last council meeting, there was a recommendation approved for the city to submit a record for decision for the upcoming AUMA Spring Municipal Leaders Caucus. The deadline for that submission is this Wednesday, and so this has been the first opportunity for us to bring back what that could look like. We have provided that document in front of you, and would be happy to take any feedback. We have to have this submission in by Wednesday to meet the deadline. And we would request, though, that there be a motion endorsing this submission.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Bork. Open for questions, comments, or input. But as Mr. Bork identified, we would need a council resolution to forward this on to the AUMA Municipal Leaders Caucus. So if there's no discussion, I would look for a motion to that effect. Councillor Bressey.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that Council endorse forwarding this request for decision to the Spring 2020 Municipal Leaders Caucus. And just to speak to this, I'm profoundly disturbed by the idea of putting a lot of referendums and Senate nominations alongside municipal elections. I think that quite naturally, those conversations consume a lot of public thought, a lot of public conversation, and a lot of media attention, which is very appropriate that they should. But at the same time, we already compete very hard to get the public to pay attention to local issues. We are the order of government that they interact with the most. We also collect property taxes, and outside of maybe carbon tax, that's the kind of tax that seems to make people the most upset in our country. And for that reason, it's really important that they have the time and the bandwidth to think about who's going to be representing them municipally. It's also really important that our local media friends, that they've got the time to properly cover what we're talking about and what each candidates are bringing to the table, and that they don't have to compete for their time with these large provincial federal issues. So I'm very disturbed by the provincial government's idea to piggyback on top of local elections. Local elections should stay local. So I hope that council will support this and that ultimately AUMA will support this.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Bressey. From the AUMA board, I can pass on that this has been a topic of discussion at the Municipal Governance Committee meetings. And I'm a member of that committee on behalf of the AUMA board, and so I think this is already a topic of discussion among other municipalities, and so I think it's likely to get supported at the Leaders Caucus in the spring. Is there any other discussion or debate? I don't see anybody ringing in, so I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. And I think that'll take us into our committee business, and starting with item 8.1, the Pursuit of Excellence Committee. Councillor Pilat, are you going to handle that for us?
Thanks, Mayor Given. I'd like to make a motion that Council adopt the minutes of the Pursuit of Excellence Committee held Wednesday, February 12, 2020, as presented.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Pilat. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? No errors or omissions that we need to change before we adopt them? Okay, then I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Pilat, anything you want to highlight from that meeting?
Yes, thanks, Mayor Given. It was brought to the committee that we had a few people that were looking for funding that didn't quite fit the criteria. So our committee has decided we're going to look at reviewing the criteria format just as a housekeeping thing. I guess it's been a few years since it's happened. I know back when I was on Pursuit 10 years ago, I think we did it then as well. And then from there, we were told we had $42,500 to give away this year. So we started giving away some money, and we gave $1,000 to Sydney Kinderwater for judo. She's applied for several other things. Mike Trace, we gave some money for $747 for coach development funding. And we also gave some money, we postponed applications because of this, but we had somebody apply for bareback. And that was one of those things that we're like, is that part of the criteria or not. So we had a few other ones. So those were kind of the highlights, and I look forward to having some conversation with committee just about the criteria moving forward.
Great. Thanks very much, Councillor Pilat. We'll move on to item 8.2, the Infrastructure and Economic Development Committee meeting. And Councillor Bressey, I think you're going to handle that one for us.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move the council adopt the minutes of the Infrastructure and Economic Development Committee meeting held Tuesday, February 18th, 2020.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Bressey. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? I don't see anybody ringing in, so I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Bressey.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Given. I think that this is the first time that we've had a conversation like this since I've been chairing this committee, so I kind of forget how our procedure usually goes. I know administration was hoping to speak to this. Would you like me to make the motion first or after?
Sure. I think maybe make the motion, then we can ask for administration to provide some context, and then we can have discussion debate following administration's presentation. Councillor Bressey.
Sure. In that case, I would move the council amend the 2020-2021 capital plan to include the installation of a combined heat and power CHP unit at the Eastlink Center to a maximum of $1,865,000. And just to be clear, I think that $1,865,000 is the city contribution to this, but the total project might be bigger because that doesn't reflect a $750,000 grant we've received for this.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Bressey. I'll look to City Manager Galante or Infrastructure and Economic Development Director, Mr. Glavin.
Thank you, Mayor Given. For the benefit of any councillors that weren't in the room, a very short recap of what the project entails. So the combined heat and power unit is literally what it is. So it generates power, but we also are able to capture the heat as a waste product of it and use that heat in order to heat the water before it hits the boilers, which is why a project like this is uniquely suited to an aquatics facility like the Eastlink Center. So that waste heat that's preheated takes away some of the energy that we would otherwise have to use to power our boilers. So the boilers will still be a relevant part of our facility infrastructure, so we'll continue to use them, but because we're not using them as much as we would in a normal scenario, we'll actually be extending the life of those boilers. We've also performed a financial analysis of this, and under a couple different scenarios, the payback period under a normal scenario or best case scenario has it ranging from about 4.4 years to 9.7 years, depending on whether we go with the single reciprocating unit or the dual turbine unit. The lower payback period being the single reciprocating unit. And a worst case scenario would be about 6.5 years to 16.5 years payback. We've also looked at this project from a standpoint, if we didn't have a grant or if we didn't use MSI as a funding source, would these projects still be viable? And if we had a grant and used debt financing, both projects are still viable financially and would pay for themselves. If both were fully debt financed, the single reciprocating unit is still cash flow positive. However, the twin turbine would not be. Today, we also have some subject matter experts in the room from ATCO at the back, and I'll leave it to that. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Director Glavin. Appreciate our friends from ATCO who've been helping the city explore this concept, being in the room to answer any questions if council had any. Is there any questions, discussion, or debate on the motion? I don't see anybody ringing in. Then I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. And that'll, Councillor Bressey, was there anything else that you want to highlight from that set of minutes?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I was expecting that debate to go a little bit longer. Just looking for. Yeah. Well, a few things I'll highlight is an update from economic development. We had this report before it happened, but since that meeting, Growing the North conference has happened, which I think was a great opportunity to welcome people from mostly across our region, but also our wider province, our wider country, to come and talk about economic development and growing the business community in the North. Our road rehab projects, it's great to hear that road rehab phase 2 has been awarded and phase 3 is on the way. There's a lot of investment coming down in our roads, which we're excited about. And I think I'll leave that at the update for now.
Great. Thanks very much, Councillor Bressey. That'll take us to 8.3, the Community Services Committee meeting. Councillor Clayton.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I would move that council adopt the meetings of the Community Service Committee meeting held Tuesday, February 18th of 2020 as presented.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Again, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Clayton.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I would move that council give first reading to bylaw C-1405A, being an amendment to the outdoor event permit bylaw.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. So motion for first reading. No discussion or debate on first reading. I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Clayton.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I would move that council give second reading to bylaw C-1405A.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. Any discussion or debate on second reading? Is there somebody from administration that would like to highlight what the significant changes are in the amendment? Or Councillor Clayton?
Sure, if I can get there.
For anybody that might not have been at the committee meeting? Sure, I see Ms. Cajole is here, and perhaps she could highlight some of the significant changes. Ms. Cajole?
Thank you, Mayor Given. There are some housekeeping amendments within the bylaw, so title changes and things like that. That would be standard for any amendment. And the largest component of the amendment to this bylaw affects the penalty section of the bylaw. So just making the language a little bit clearer and actually reducing the penalty for a first offense and subsequent offense.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see anybody else in the queue. And I'll call for the vote on second reading. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Clayton.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I would move that council give third reading to bylaw C-1405. I apologize. That council have third reading to bylaw C-1505A at this meeting.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. Yeah, so that is a motion that have is an important distinction. So this is a motion to have third and final reading here this afternoon. If this motion doesn't pass unanimously, then final reading would come back at our subsequent council meeting. Is there any discussion or debate as to the merits of having third and final reading here this afternoon? Seeing none, I'll ask for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. Councillor Clayton.
And I would move that council give third reading to bylaw C-1405A, being an amendment to the outdoor event permit bylaw.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. Any last chance? Gone for discussion debate on third and final reading? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Clayton, anything else that you want to highlight from that set of minutes?
Just a couple quick things. At that meeting, committee approved or directed administration to establish a community knowledge campus advisory committee. This will be an opportunity. There was an established criteria, including partners and stakeholders of this facility, as well with the addition of a youth representative and a school board representative from both the Catholic and the public school board. So it will be obviously in compliance with the board and committee's framework, but it will be an opportunity for and it'll enhance the awareness and support for the facility throughout the community and benefit the operations of the community knowledge campus. The user groups, the experience of people that attend the facility. It's obviously a great asset in our community, and council committee was optimistic that this will provide an opportunity to get additional feedback from various groups of that use that and work with that facility on a regular basis. As well, it was a little bit in the media already, but committee approved the city entrance features signed. There was three options presented to committee, and committee approved that. So that work will get underway shortly. And other than that was it. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. We'll go to item 8.4, the Corporate Services Committee, and Councillor Minhas.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I move the council adopt the minutes of Cooperative Service Committee meeting held on Tuesday, February 18, 2020 as presented.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Minhas. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Is there anything we need to correct before we adopt them? Don't see anybody waving their hand, so I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Minhas.
Yes, I move the recommendation. Council direct the mayor to sign the unanimous consent regulation on behalf of the City Council.
Thanks very much, Councillor Minhas. My understanding is this is a required step for Aquaterra to declare a discretionary dividend as they're proposing for 2019. So in essence, if Council directs me to do this, I will take that action as a shareholder of Aquaterra, and it will mean that the City of Grande Prairie will receive the funds that administration had budgeted for, that Aquaterra had communicated in advance to us. Any other discussion or debate? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Minhas, anything else you wanted to highlight?
Yes, couple things, small one. the public budget document for 2020 to 2023 operating and 2020 to 2024 capital plan will be available later today to review underway all the outstanding capital projects. And there are currently 18 comparative bids are in the market with the 34 in the queue for processing. All the comparative bids submissions are now electronic, no hard copy are being accepted. Preparation for moving a e-procurement site. And then ESRI snow removal pilot project user group training to be held on proposed use for tracking a residential snow removal. The phone upgrade rollout, Skypes for the business has been begun. The fire department CAD 911 system project is scheduled to be begun on February 21st, today 24. Yep.
Great. Thanks very much, Councillor Minhas. And we'll move on to 8.5, the Protective and Social Services Committee meeting. And I think Councillor Pilat, you're going to handle that one for us as well.
Thanks, Mayor Gibbon. I'd make a motion that the Council adopt the minutes of the Protective and Social Services Committee meeting held Tuesday, February 18th, 2020 as presented.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Pilat. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Pilat, anything to highlight from the minutes?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Gibbon. The GPREP is bylaw has been approved by the regional committee, and it'll be going to the separate municipalities for approval and coming back, and scheduled to come back April 1st. So I'm sure that'll probably come to us at some point to get ratified here. We also had a really good verbal update and lots of conversation about the Parkside Inn from Ms. Catherine Schmidt that come and presented to committee. And also a reminder that the Woman of Influence Awards are March 6, 11:30 at Teresa Sargent Holt.
Thanks, Councillor Pilat. I guess that'll take us to 8.6 in the Bylaw and Policy Review Committee. And Councillor Bressey, I think you were standing in chairing that one.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move the Council adopt the minutes of the Bylaw and Policy Review Committee held Tuesday, February 18th, 2020 as presented.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Bressey. Any errors or omissions? I don't see anyone ringing in, so I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Looking for one more, just make sure it's stuck. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Bressey.
Thank you. I'd move that Council give first reading to Bylaw C-866A, being a bylaw to repeal Bylaw C-866.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Bressey. So no discussion or debate on first reading. We'll get to find out what Bylaw C-866 is after we have first reading. I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Bressey, tell us all about 866.
Great. Well, first of all, I'd move the Council give second reading to Bylaw C-866A and just speak to this. This bylaw, if we pass today, would repeal an old bylaw that had to do with milk pasteurization. And just in terms of where society's moved, where the food industry has moved, where regulation from senior levels of government has moved, this is just no longer needed. And this is coming out of the committee's work to get to clean up our books by getting irrelevant things off our books so that we no longer have to worry about them.
Sure. Thanks very much, Councillor Bressey. Any discussion or debate on the motion? I just want to commend administration and the committee for identifying a section of bylaws that are ready for repeal that are no longer relevant. It's a little bit of a joke that it's a milk pasteurization bylaw and not something that I've ever dealt with on my time on council, but it's a good example of how if we don't actually actively monitor these things, they can kind of go on in a zombie state of a bylaw that is really not relevant to anybody, but is actually still a legal document on the city's books. So thanks very much for bringing it forward. I don't see anybody else ringing in, so I'll call for the vote on second reading. Please vote. That motion carries. I heard somebody asking if this meant that we can buy unpasteurized milk in the city of Grande Prairie. And I think the point here is that other levels of government and other agencies have taken on regulation of this area. So the answer is probably no. Councillor Bressey?
Great. I would move that we have third reading of bylaw C-866A at this meeting.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Bressey. This is a motion to have third and final reading here this afternoon. You all know the deal. It must pass unanimously. Is there any discussion or debate as to the merits of having third and final reading? Is there a view that the public needs to have more time to consider the repeal of this bylaw and its implications before moving on to third and final reading? I don't see anybody ringing in on that point, so I'll call for the vote on the motion to have third and final reading. Please vote. Thankfully, that motion passes unanimously. Councillor Bressey.
And finally, I would move that council give third reading to bylaw C-866A, being a bylaw to repeal bylaw C-866.
Thanks very much, Councillor Bressey. Any discussion or debate on third and final reading? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. The end of an era. Councillor Bressey.
Well, another era is dawning. I'd move the council give first reading to bylaw C-968A, being a bylaw to repeal bylaw C-968.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Bressey. No discussion or debate on first reading. I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Looking for one more. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Bressey.
Great. I would move the council give second reading to bylaw C-968A and just speak to the bylaw that we're potentially repealing. This is one that's quite dated, and it was when the city was transitioning from one city manager to the next. In between that period, while council was figuring that out, they needed to figure out who's going to manage the city, and this is a bylaw that established a team to manage that city. Something I'd point out is that this is a city manager team that's been set up by bylaw. We appointed our city manager by resolution. I think bylaws trump resolutions. So as I shared with the committee, I think technically our city manager has been an acting city manager all this time.
Man, considering actually the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 city managers have only ever been acting city managers if this bylaw was on the books. Oh, okay. Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Bressey. Any discussion or debate on second reading? I don't see anybody ringing in. I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Bressey.
I would move the council have third reading of bylaw C-968A at this meeting.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Bressey. A motion to have third and final reading. Any discussion or debate on the merits of that point? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. The motion does pass unanimously. Councillor Bressey.
And I would move the council give third reading to bylaw C-968A, being a bylaw to repeal bylaw C-968.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Bressey. Any discussion or debate on third and final reading? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Congratulations, Rossio. Councillor Bressey.
Well, I was going to be the first to congratulate you. The mayor stole that, but I will be the first to point out you promised if we appointed you city manager, you'd find a number of efficiencies, and I think your tally only starts today.
Oh, yeah. Any efficiencies before now actually accrue to the team. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Great. I would move the council repeal policy 6020, rental of city equipment, and policy 6115, county grading and snow plowing, and policy 61215, transit service. And these, again, even if you just read them, you can see they were typed, it looks like, in the era before computers. I think shows how old and potentially irrelevant these policies are.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Bressey. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Bressey, anything else you want to highlight from the policy and review, policy and procedure? Bylaw and Policy Review Committee. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a committee where we had again, this is a new committee that we're still trying to figure out. So most of the conversation was actually not around the business that we brought to you guys today, but just how is this community going to work moving forward? And two decisions got made. One is there's a number of bylaws that got brought forward by administration that are ready for repeal, and we gave them we passed a motion that those be brought to future council meetings, but administration is going to break those out over a few so you can see how tedious it is, which, by the way, might be an area of red tape the provincial government might consider reducing someday. And then the other thing that happened is administration brought forward 29 other policies and bylaws that fell into the committee's priority criteria of having a financial impact of $1 million or more on either the city or external parties, or bylaws and policies that mediate the city's relationship with people through a forum or something like that. And what we asked administration to do is to bring 3 to 5 of those other policies to the next meeting, and presumably if that goes well to subsequent meetings. And the idea is administration's going to prioritize which ones they bring, partly by which ones are priority areas, but also by just how staff schedules work out, so that when necessary they can bring the appropriate subject matter experts to that committee table to be around there so the committee can have relevant conversation. The hope is there's about 29 of them. If they bring 3 to 5 a month, then by the end of this year, that committee would get through that whole priority list so that we can move on to other important but lower priority properties is the conversation we had. So we'll see how that process goes, but that's how we set up the process for now.
Great. Thanks very much, Councillor Bressey. Thanks for that update. I think that handles all of our committee business. We had no items of correspondence or delegations, so we have no notices of motion, and we had moved that in camera to come after council member reports. So we'll go straight into council member reports since we're not breaking for recess this afternoon. We'll start off with the Grande Prairie Airport Commission. We had that. Councillor Pilat.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I'll do this report on behalf of both myself and Councillor Thiessen, who is also in attendance. So some numbers that come out from last year, the 2019 total passengers were down 3.7% over 2018. And January 2020 is actually down 12.4% from January 19. So not great numbers. Having said that, we had some really good numbers. Some of our best years were a few years ago. So these are still decent numbers. They're not nothing we should be screaming up and down about. You know, they give us context of other passengers that are dropping down, and you know, Prince George, Fort McMurray, Edmonton, Calgary, Fort St. John doesn't have numbers, but every municipality's passenger counts were down, so it's not something that should be alarming to just Grande Prairie. The annual service capacity for 2019 included 592 arriving and departing seats available from the carriers, resulting in an average load factor of 71%. So at our meeting, they did mention that that's a healthy number for airlines. So again, nothing to probably be too concerning about. Thanks, Mayor Good.
Great. Thanks very much, Councillor Pilat. Next up was Grande Prairie Sport Connection. Councillor Bressey.
Great, thank you, Mayor Given. So we had a board meeting, and a few things worth highlighting is, first of all, council, if you're free on March 6th, there's the Sports Excellence Awards are happening. We were very excited to see 55 nominees from the community made there. So we're excited to recognize not just excellence in sports, but also volunteerism and sportsmanship in sports as well. So I hope some of you will join us there. An interesting story that I appreciate hearing from our executive director's update to the board was she's working with the local Ninja Warrior Club, and they had a Canadian-wide competition here in early January, and right now they're working with the Federation of International Ninja Athletics to get a qualifying event for International Ninja Warrior competition. And I think it's a cool example of this is a very new, very emerging sport that was started by, I think, just one guy who saw it on TV and was very interested in it and started doing it a bit for his kids and then wanted to make it available for the wider community. And I know, having some discussions with them, they're very dedicated, very talented individuals, but at the same time, they've never started something like this before. And so the Sport Connector has been working alongside them to help them organize, to help them make sure they're putting policies in place to keep kids safe that are in their programs, and now to also explore their ability to offer competition in the area and to offer local people the ability to go compete elsewhere. So that was exciting to see. I think the other conversation I'll highlight is we had a lot of conversation around finance and around the 2020 budget. And I know there's a lot of want in that group to do more for sports, in terms of we see a lot of capacity for the potential of not just growing sports in the community, but also there's a lot of sports where it's actually kind of scary how they operate in terms of their risk management and the policies they have in place to protect kids. And we think there's a lot more we could do to protect the sports themselves and also to help them protect the athletes coming through. The challenge with that always, of course, is that you need more money and more resources to expand your reach. And I think there's a really good recognition in that group that it's mostly government, well, it's all government funded right now, other than their sports excellence awards and a little bit of sponsorship, and that we can't just come to municipal government to ask for more in the current climate. So there was some good conversation around that group about how are we going to generate some revenue, and how's that group going to generate some revenue of its own to expand its programming and expand the helps it's able to give. So it was a fun conversation to be a part of.
Great. Thanks very much, Councillor Bressey. And I think our last external report was the Peace Library System. Councillor Thiessen.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Given. Peace Library System met this past Saturday, February 22nd, here in Grande Prairie, with a full board meeting. Part of the actions that we undertook was we approved the subcommittee for the hiring of the new executive director, which we're hoping will happen sometime before the summer, before Linda Duplessis moves into her retirement. We also approved and reviewed the unaudited financial statements, and the audited financial statements, of course, will come to our next board meeting after it's looked over by the executive. Just a bit of heads up, things happening at the Peace Library Systems. We've recently expanded our digital magazine collection through a new agreement between RB Digital and Track. Residents in all 4 regions of libraries now have access to 3,785 digital magazines. And this is significant because each library system used to handle their own e-magazines, and there was no more than 392 total subscriptions. So we have just multiplied that number by 10 and now have more access going throughout libraries throughout the Peace Library System in all 4 regions across Alberta. Also, a bit of efficiencies that were found as well. We just launched our new website. Well, I guess it's not new. We rebranded it and we made it a little more user-friendly. And it was launched actually this past Friday. So if you get a chance, go to peacelibrarysystems.ab.ca and check out the new website there. And you'll see what people all across the region are experiencing when they order their book catalogs and ask for their shipments. But in relation to that, our internet cost updates in December, organization called Cybera, who handles internet costs, announced that they had dropped their bandwidth rates from $1.50 per megabyte or Mbps, I don't know, to $1.35 to megabyte per second. That's what it is. And the new pricing took effect on January 1st, 2020. And we had moved to Cybera in November 2016, which is significant because most libraries right now, through their standard internet providers and bandwidth providers, are paying $5 per megabyte per second. So we saw a 15-cent drop, and they're still going up. So we're very happy with that decision that we made collectively as a board. Finally, if you're looking to get into the gaming world, libraries are now offering rentals of Nintendo Switches for families who'd like to reserve their copy today. That's going out all across the province as a new promotion to get kids active and to give them the same experiences that other families who may be able to afford those types of systems have to have interactive gaming experiences with their friends and family. So available for 3 weeks rental at the Grande Prairie Public Library and Peace Library Systems. Put your name on the list now. Anyways, thanks.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. I think that handles all of our reports from our external agencies, boards, and commissions. That being the case, we'll go to Council Member Roundtable, and we'll start with Councillor Minhas.
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. For me, there was what happened I had to go to Bellevue, met to their manager, city manager, and the mayors. They gave me the tour for their facility, the new city council, town council, whatever you call it. And I was very impressed with the system. They have a solar energy system put up in there. It cost them $3 million. And also they got a grant from the government, $300,000. And they don't use gas. They don't use air conditioner or anything. It stays cool in the summer and hot in the winter with the solar energy. And also they were saying that the gas bill came out from $16,000 to $3,000 sorry, not gas, electrical bill for cold month was in part of cold month in January. So that was a very impressive understanding, and that's only one kind in the municipal world in whole Canada or North America. I don't know, but they said it was one of the project was in Canada for sure. After we had a Grow North conference, 2 days spent it there, and lots to meet the people, lots to learn up there, and economical, all nautical. They're listening to people. They're trying to arrange the money for the nautical plant and all hard work, and they're doing it, and lots learning. And rest of, I think my colleagues can fill in. You know, they went to O'Toole and Bressey and Mayor. Everybody was there except Clyde. I think he was shaken out the other day. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Minhas. Councillor Clayton.
Thanks, Mayor Gibbon. Lots been going on. Currently supporting the mayor where possible in regard with my deputy mayor duties. I'm going to start sort of near the beginning of the month after the last council meeting. Many people in the room attended the MOU signing for the announcement and the formalization and the next steps in regards to the TMIP, and it was attended by Minister Nixon as well as Minister Taves and Minister Allard. Mayor spoke as well as our other partners from the MD as well as the county. I had the opportunity to attend the Chamber of Commerce Premier's event with all of caucus in attendance as well. Followed that evening, myself and Councillor Minhas and Councillor Pilat attended the Premier's dinner. Also, that week was very busy. We had an opportunity to meet with the Minister of Justice and Solicitor General. I brought greetings at the business development training with Indigenous companies. It was a fairly new conference supported by Unotech Alberta. It's an Indigenous engagement opportunity for midstream and downstream energy sector to learn how to better communicate and consultate and work with Indigenous companies. I attended and brought greetings to the annual Passionate Hearts Award, which is an annual day on, it's always the day before Valentine's Day, which is very suiting with the name of the event, and where we recognize FCSS and generous organizations, people, and industry within the community. That day, there's many people recognized, including John Newdorf of NTL Pipelines, who has given $1 million to the Sunrise House in regards to their next project. So he was recognized that day along with his some of his fellow employees and the company. We also, as a council, had an opportunity to meet with 4 other MLAs representing the opposition, three rather, MLA Joe Cece, Thomas Dang, and Lauren Dosh, which was a nice conversation in regards to what opposition elected officials can do to represent the region and our needs of council and priorities for us. I attended the Northern Hospitality event, which was sort of a kickoff to the, there's 2 different components of it. One evening was local elected officials and provincial officials that were in the region with business leaders and Growing the North attendees. And the second event, a few nights later, was more focused on the rural municipalities attendees that were in the region for a regional rural event. Also, as many other councillors around the table attended the Growing the North conference. During that, I had the opportunity to represent the city at the Labour Market Needs Assessment announcement, which is in collaboration with the MD in the county and the Chamber of Commerce. It'll be about a year project where we have the opportunity to assess our current needs and go forward in and what that looks like in needs in the future. From there, the report will come back, and from there we'll be able to make a strategy and further decisions. Also attended a meeting with that was a great fulsome conversation with Minister Tanya Fair in regards to the economic development component and what's happening in our region and where the strengths and opportunities lie, as well having a conversation in regards to the tourism assets and opportunities within the region and across the province, and how we can integrate ourselves within those opportunities. And I think I'll leave the rest because other people have stuff too. So thanks.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton, and thanks for stepping up in the deputy mayor role. Much appreciated. Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much for allowing the rest of us speak, Ms. Clayton. So last week I was in Winnipeg. I went to the Festival des Voyageurs. It's part of the Francophile part of my role. And I met with the Brian Bowman, which is the mayor of Winnipeg, and also Matt Allard. He is he's the councillor from St. Bonaviste, where the event actually takes place. It's been going for 51 years. There was an education component of many sources that I witnessed. And during the time that the festival wasn't on, I took the time to explore the city of Winnipeg, put 34.2 kilometers on my shoes, and I attended the Museum of Mankind, Human Rights Museum. That took me 5 hours to go through there, and I would encourage anybody that's going to Winnipeg to definitely take that in. It was amazing. I also went and stood on a couple of streets there and looked at the history. It's one of the most historical towns, cities in Western Canada when it comes to the exploration of Western Canada. With that, we talked a lot about how the relationship with the Métis, the French-speaking and the English and other Indigenous people, and how they can get along. And I would like to share some of those in the next little while with our city and see if we can host an event similar to that in the future. And thank you very much, Mayor Given. There's other things that I went to, but I'm going to cut it short.
Starting a new trend.
I think so.
Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. Councillor Bressey.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Given. I think the one and only thing I'll highlight is being at Growing the North. I spent a lot of time talking to people from rural areas up in the north, and I thought it was very concerning hearing how much fear there is around our agricultural sector, which is something that I hadn't been tracking with too much lately. There's been so much talk about oil and gas, but a lot of people in the agriculture industry and a lot of our rural municipal colleagues very concerned about everything from canola exports to rail blockades to some potential changes to regulations surrounding funguses and pests in our wheat and canola. And there was a lot of pessimism, a lot of anger, a lot of fear there, and it really gave me pause just realizing not only do we really rely on our rural areas for our own food, but also here in Grande Prairie, we always like to talk about how we're so fortunate that we have a strong agriculture sector to back us when oil and gas is down. And hearing both pessimism there as well as in our oil and gas sector really concerned me, and it's something that I feel that I as a councillor need to start paying more attention to. And I wonder if it's even something that we as a city council should be paying more attention to in terms of some of our advocacy priorities, helping figure out, are there places, opportunities where we should be boosting the voices of our rural colleagues who are standing up for an industry that very much is important to our area. So that was a concerning but a worthwhile conversation to pay attention to that I had. Well, not a conversation, many conversations I had at Growing the North.
Thanks very much, Councillor Bressey. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I don't have anything to report in terms of events or activities that I've been involved in. And although I'm reluctant to talk about my health too often, I think it's important for council and perhaps the general public to understand that as a result of the chemotherapy and the stem cell transplant that I had in October, there is a period of time I'm going through right now where I have absolutely no immunity to any kind of infection. And so I have to be very careful about the venues that I go to, the size of the crowds that I attend with, and so on. So I'm being extremely selective about what it is that I may or may not go to over the next few months. And for that, I'm sorry, because I do enjoy going to those things, and I know also that I'm not representing council at as many places as I probably should. However, my heart is there. I'm involved in council and committee meetings, and I intend to carry on with those. And the rest of the time, I'm going to be careful and look after myself so that I'm around for the long haul. Thank you.
Absolutely, and here. Thanks very much, Councillor Blackburn. Councillor Thiessen.
There we go. Thank you very much, Mayor Given, and thank you very much, Councillor Blackburn, not for anything you said to me, but just for existing and showing your strength, your courage and perseverance and being up front. Let me tell you, I've gone to many events over the last few weeks and years of being on council, but especially the last few weeks and months. Your name usually comes up at some point in a conversation. So whether you're there in physical nature, you're definitely there in spirit and in the minds and hearts of people around. So very much part of it wherever any of us go. So I think the community totally understands that. I'm just going to highlight one event that I went to. It was actually an inaugural event on February 13th and 14th. I was joined for the Grand March and the opening ceremonies by Councillor Bressey and Deputy Mayor Clayton as the Indigenous Iskwoo Plus in Leadership Symposium that was held at the Pomeroy Hotel. Dealing largely, the symposium part was a big conversation on empowerment, passion, and resilience. So a three-part conversation with many people from our Indigenous communities and their perspectives. And when I say people, I want to really stress women. This is a leadership symposium on women and how they can empower themselves, show resilience, and bring forth their passion to help make the changes in the world that their culture, their people, and I think everybody in the world needs to see. A lot more of that divine feminine voice, a lot more of that naturalist voice, and really to empower them. The First Nations communities have gone through so much trauma over the years, especially under missing and murdered Aboriginal women. One of the best ways to change those types of trends is to have these types of conversations at these types of events, and really to share the stories and to build each other up. Lift Her Up, I think, is a campaign once upon a time ago. It's still going on through the Odyssey House and women's shelters circles, but this especially culturally and I think nationally and historically will only improve everyone's lot in life. So I want to hand it to the organizers and to the presenters who varied in age. Everyone up on stage is being interviewed and moderated by Today FM's Erica Fisher. We're ranging in the age from 18 years old all the way up to 70, and sharing their perspectives on how to build each other up. So great to be a part of that whole event, and I hope that they continue to have those conversations moving forward.
Thanks, Councillor Bressey. Councillor Pilat.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I guess the benefit of going near the end is everything's been covered. So I think the only thing that was on my list that hasn't been covered is our council had the opportunity to have a luncheon with UDI. Which I always enjoy, having that open dialogue. It's an industry that's obviously close to my heart, but I think it's very topical right now on what's going on with Grande Prairie and potentially some of the projects that could come. So it was good conversation, and look forward to having ongoing conversation there. And then just to echo some of the comments made about some of the fortunate timing of having all the ministers and MLAs up in the area and some of the conversations we were allowed to have with that. So grateful for those, and it was nice to establish some new relationships. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Councillor Platt. Yeah, many things have been covered, and so I'll have the opportunity to also be brief. I had on Tuesday the 11th, I was in Edmonton for an Alert Community Advisory Committee meeting with the chiefs of police that are the board for Alert. They were able to provide the CAC, Community Advisory Committee, with some updates about Alert's actions and that they are sharing in the proposal they're sharing with the province for some increased funding that Alert has received about how the organization will use that, and we were able to provide them some feedback, and Alert will share that after it's been approved by the government. On Thursday the 13th, I was here at City Hall with Councillor Bressey as we welcomed a number of grade 6 students from St. Catherine's School to present about local government. Interestingly, this weekend, just in my personal life, I was introduced to a young lady who is in her second year of university, studying international relations and political science, and she remarked to me that I might not remember her, but she came to City Hall when she was in grade 6, and it was a good reminder that that experience actually lasts with these young people for a really long time. And it's I think it's a really important thing to do, to welcome a lot of these kids in to City Hall. Remind them that this is a building for them, that that council is accessible to them, and that the decisions that we make will impact their lives. And it was also really great to see it's an awesome chance to conduct informal surveys. I asked who had attended the Eastlink Center, and out of the nearly 60 children that were here, it was 100% attendance at Eastlink Center. So in terms of the value that we're getting out of the municipal assets that we have in the community, they're really well utilized, and it was a good reminder of that too. But it was just that that follow-on reminder that there was somebody that remembered that, for, you know, the grade 6 experience that must be 8 or 9 years ago that she would have been here, that it stuck with her, being able to come to City Hall and learn a little bit about local government. So that was really great to see. I was also out of the city for some period of time and appreciated Councillor Clayton picking up a number of things as Deputy Mayor. But at AUMA, I participated in a special working group for AUMA's business lines, and then was here at City Hall, locked up in my office doing a municipal governance committee meeting, which is another one of AUMA committees. And then later that afternoon, I attended the funeral service for Hugh Impey. Hugh is a former Grande Prairie City Council member and former mayor, and it was a fitting tribute to him as people reflected on his contribution to his profession as a surveyor, his contribution to the community locally through his time on council, and then also his contribution globally through his time in Rotary, as he was a leading proponent of a number of different international projects, as well as encouraging local Rotarians to contribute to the Rotary Foundation, which financially supports a number of international, many different types of international projects across the world. And so it was a pleasure to represent all of us, City Council in the City of Grande Prairie, at that funeral service. And then finally, on Friday the 21st, I attended on behalf of AUMA, but to just let Council know, at the RMA Zone 4 meeting. So this is the RMA's structure is that they will have their different zones will meet and feed things up to the RMA board. And so the AUMA board members are invited to attend. We each sort of mirror a RMA zone. The RMA zone chair for this area is Tom Burton from the MD of Greenview. So he invited me to come and attend, and I was able to bring, join in a little bit of their meeting and bring some perspective from AUMA to their meeting. And so it was a pleasure to be able to do that, and to see that group meeting in Grande Prairie. They do circulate through the Northwest. And with that, I have nothing left to report. And so I would look, I think that concludes our council member reports. I'd look for a motion to go in camera. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I move that council go in camera.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Blackburn. This will be the conclusion of our public agenda. Is there any discussion or debate on going in camera? Then I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. That will conclude our public agenda for this afternoon. We'll see everybody back for our regular City Council meeting in 2 weeks' time. Thank you.